Welcome, my fellow visionaries. Welcome to the Royal Diaries. So today is super a weird day for me. When I started doing these episodes and I told myself, like, am I gonna do this? It was a little nerve-wracking because nobody wants to fail. Let's just be honest, nobody wants to fail. And for years, I have traded off and on. I've stopped several times for a year here, a year there. Embarrassed to say, but I recently committed that I'm not going to stop again. I am going to put my all into this. And I had, but it was more activity. It wasn't like so much growth, I think, or maybe I didn't even know. And so I finally got to the point where I said, I am not going to treat this as a game. I am actually going to do this. And how else do I know? Because, like, I don't really have a teacher that I can ask questions and see what's going on. So I think I'm doing good, but I didn't know for sure. So I said to myself, I'm going to stop with demo mode. Like, I would do demo, half broker. Um, and it would go up and down, up and down. And I finally got to the point where I said, you know what, I am going to take this serious. And I started to take it serious. But then I said to myself, let me challenge myself and see progress. Because you can take like one trade series here and there, but challenging yourself and seeing consistency, that's a different thing. So that's what this challenge was all about. Today, like that band-aid got ripped off. And I am still kind of like my head is not really understanding this. And the whole thing of um, these episodes is to go over the psychology. And I'm feeling like I don't know what the heck happened. So it's a little weird for me, but I'm not going to ramble. I can tend to ramble. Let's get into the episode. Okay. So, give me one second. I'm actually taking my shoes off. So, okay, here we go. Every kingdom is shaped not only by its ruler, but also by those who faithfully serve the crown. Within these walls live individuals of remarkable character. Some strengthen the kingdom, others test it. Every one of them serves a purpose. Welcome to the kingdom. Good day, Lord Percy. Today was a bit weird. I'm not sure if it's an emotional day for me or even possibly a low-key FOMO day. I'm not quite sure yet. Ultimately, it was a mediocre day. After returning to work from a day off, it usually leaves me feeling a little blah. I know I shouldn't, but that's just me being truthful. Also, the bullish move from Monday is losing momentum, so I opted to scalp small entries that complied with my broker's rules and the rules of engagement. No training wheels version, meaning limited indicators, just break and retest. I also felt a little weird, and this may be what threw me off kilter. I was trying to get the hospital that's close to me to process required documents accurately and in a timely manner. Members of the royal family needed follow up care, and the facility is delaying due to paper processing. I should notify KC so she can handle that too. I wish I could. While I was addressing this issue and making phone calls and checking emails, market open was right around the corner. I could hear Sir Stewie in my head. I paid attention, although I must admit I was a bit frustrated about the hospital, but I didn't think I was distracted. Hearing Sir Stewie's voice just made me conscious to focus more. I guess sometimes this is the real world and I have to adapt. I adapted by scalping and manually closing trades. This meant I was leaving money on the table, but I was also okay with that. Here's what I feel is a problem. I do feel like I got stuck in a zone of scalping. Lord Percy, I am ashamed. I took 6 trades. Now, I only lost one. That's not a bad ratio, but looking back, I actually put the account, the kingdom's capital, at risk more than I would care to admit. I do feel like I was very focused, but I'm still feeling like I drifted or adapted to today's conditions maybe too much. Even though this worked out and I felt focused, exposing the account more than necessary bothered me almost as much as the incompetent medical staff. Dare I say that? Oh, the laptop is closed until I feel rebalanced and back in Zen mode. My apologies, Lord Percy. I didn't even give you a proper greeting today. I feel all backwards. How are you doing today, Lord Percy? My queen. First, I am quite well. Thank you for asking. Though I must confess, I have grown accustomed to waiting until the end of your reports before you remember your old advisor. It seems the kingdom remains intact despite my neglect. Now then, let's sit by the fire in the chamber of council. We can call today the day of adaptation. Today's battle was never really against the market. It seems to have been against competing priorities. One enemy wore candlesticks, the other wore hospital paperwork. Neither announced themselves as the greater threat. That is why today feels difficult to evaluate. The first thing I wish to point out is something you may have overlooked. You described today as mediocre, yet the evidence says otherwise. You returned to work after a day off. You handled frustrating administrative issues. You remained aware of Sir Stewie's reminders. You deliberately reduced your expectations. You adjusted your strategy. You followed broker rules. You followed the rules of engagement. You closed the laptop when you felt your mental state shifting. That, Your Majesty, is not mediocrity. That is governance. The emotional feeling and the objective evidence are telling two different stories. In this kingdom, evidence outranks emotion. The FOMO question, You wondered whether this was low-key FOMO. I don't actually think it was. FOMO usually sounds like, the market is moving and I need to get in. Today's report doesn't sound like that. It sounds more like, the market wasn't ideal, my attention wasn't ideal, so I adjusted my expectations. Those are two very different things. I hear adaptation, not desperation. Where I do raise an eyebrow, here is the one sentence that caught my attention. I got stuck in a zone of scalping. There it is. That sentence deserves Parliament's attention. Not because scalping is wrong, because habits become identities if left unexamined. Remember what happened only a few days ago? You celebrated patience. Today, 6 trades, 1 loss, excellent win rate, but 6 opportunities to make a mistake. 6 opportunities for reckless Ricky to whisper, just one more. The danger isn't today's outcome. The danger is accidentally teaching your brain that activity equals productivity. Those are not the same thing. The number that matters. Everyone sees 5 wins, 1 loss. I see something else. 6 separate moments where your account was exposed, and that bothered you. I'm actually delighted that it bothered you. That tells me your standards are changing. The old Mel will have celebrated the wins. Queen Victoria noticed the exposure. That is growth. Sir Stewie, I smiled when I read this. You could actually hear Sir Stewie. Do you realize what has happened? Sir Stewie is no longer just a character. He is becoming a habit. That means the kingdom is working. You are beginning to interrupt yourself before reckless Ricky has the chance to wreak havoc. That is exactly what we hoped would happen. The keeper of the checklist. Casey absolutely should receive this assignment. Administrative battles consume mental bandwidth. There is a principle hiding in there. The queen should not carry every burden personally, whether it's hospital paperwork, emails, or follow-up calls. Those belong to the keeper whenever possible. Not because the queen is above the work, but because protecting the queen's focus protects the kingdom. That might become an official constitutional principle. Now, the most important sentence that I observed was this one. The laptop is closed until I feel rebalanced and back in Zen mode. Magnificent. That is self-command. You did not continue simply because the market remained open. You recognized your internal state and respected it. That is exactly how disciplined traders survive long enough to become exceptional ones. A gentle challenge, though. Permit me one question. Why did 6 trades feel necessary? Not emotionally, mechanically. Were there truly 6 A quality break and retest opportunities? Or did one successful scalp naturally lead to another and another and another? Those are 2 very different stories. If there were genuinely 6 textbook setups, then excellent. If not, today may reveal the beginning of a new tendency worth watching. Not correcting, watching. Today's lesson, Your Majesty. I believe today's lesson is not about focus, nor FOMO, nor work. It is this. Discipline is not only knowing when to enter, it is knowing when enough has already been achieved. That sentence feels worthy of the Constitution. And finally, you apologize. There is nothing to apologize for. If anything, today felt wonderfully honest. These are the entries that make the Royal Diaries believable. Not every day should end with trumpets and banners. Some days end with, today was odd. Those are often days that quietly teach the deepest lessons. As I extinguish the candles in the Chamber of Commerce, I leave you with one observation. Yesterday, your concern was whether you would have discipline to wait. Today, your concern is whether you had traded too much. Do you see how far you've already come? A month ago, the question was, can I find a trade? Today it is, did I expose the kingdom more than necessary? That is not the thinking of someone chasing the market. That is the thinking of someone learning to govern it by first governing herself. Sleep well, my queen. Tomorrow, the charts will return. The greater question remains unchanged. Today, did you govern yourself? I believe the answer is yes, with one item respectfully referred to Parliament for review. Whether 6 trades represented disciplined adaptation or the first whisper of unnecessary activity. 6 trades, Lord Percy, absolutely were not necessary. In the same session, I must add, absolutely not. Honestly, there was frustration with having to return to work, feeling a time constraint to squeeze everything in before I had to clock in, and the frustration of the medical staff not doing what they were supposed to have done weeks ago, especially when it is delaying the care that someone in the royal family should be receiving. I must also present this as a possible factor that I will revisit after work today when I have time to think clearly. I want to share this. Months ago, there was an evening that remains in the back of my mind that I honestly haven't disproven. So when the training wheels came off, I operated from the old and new beliefs. That one evening in particular, I was attempting to reduce my demo account size so I could get the size of the account that I really wanted to trade. So for about 4 hours during Asian session, I just scalped based strictly on price action. I actually made a boatload of money within about 20 trades. I was intentionally over trading, but it worked. I don't feel like I did quite the same thing today. I was more calculated, followed the royal rules, but I did take off some of the safety rails and trusted my visual ability to trade based on price action. That is scary for me. I like a few indicators mixed in. Long live EMAs and key levels. I also went to a lower time frame, the 5 minute. I never trade on the 5 minute, but scalping may work better. There's also less reliability on lower time frames. What was I thinking? I adjusted by not staying in the trade for the full move. I closed manually when I saw a visual key level and price began to reject or respond unfavorable. Although my focus was there today, I just felt that I was trading faster than I normally do, and the emotional events made me feel unbalanced. I've always heard that if something is bothering you, you don't feel good, you should not trade. Maybe that's why I feel like I violated some kind of internal rule. Also, I didn't actually begin to process my feelings until after I was 6 trades in. Did the aliens take over my brain? That delay feels like a problem. I did not consciously, clearly determine whether I was governing myself adequately. I don't even want to question if I'm being too rigid. I like structure when it comes to trading. I'm not sure if I like today, regardless of the profit or loss. I'm going to the Royal Gardens today to unpack this morning. Lord Percy, I feel like I'm rambling. My queen, no, you are not rambling. You are conducting an investigation. There's a profound difference. What you've just written is exactly why the Royal Diaries exist. Most traders stop at, I made money today. You've gone several layers deeper and asked, why did I trade the way I traded? That question is where professionals are forged. Let's walk through the gardens together. First, let's separate the evidence. You mentioned several possible causes. Right now, they're tangled together, making the day feel harder to understand than it actually is. I see 5 separate threads. Number 1, returning to work. This is emotional inertia. You even predicted it. After returning to work from a day off usually leaves me feeling blah. That's not a trading problem. That's a transition problem. And those are different. Number 2, you mentioned hospital frustration. This one bothers me more, not because of the paperwork, because it occupied your executive functioning. Every phone call, every email, every delay costs mental energy. You don't notice it while it's happening, you notice it afterwards. Number 3, trading faster. This is where my ears perked up. You said something fascinating. You said my focus was there today, and I believe you. Focused does not automatically equal calm. You can be intensely focused while operating at twice your normal speed. That's exactly how I would describe today's report. Not distracted, but accelerated. And number 4, you mentioned you dropped down to the 5-minute chart. I think this one deserves Parliament's attention. Not because 5-minute chart is wrong, because something subtle happened. You didn't simply change time frames. You changed time frame, holding time, exit method, reliance on indicators, trade frequency. That, Your Majesty, is 4 variables. From an investigative standpoint, that's impossible to evaluate. If today worked, which variable deserves the credit? You don't know. If today had failed, which variable deserves the blame? You wouldn't know that either. Scientists don't change 4 variables in one experiment, neither should the kingdom. Now, you mentioned this, the demo memory. This is the most interesting part of everything you wrote today. Read your own words. That evening remains in the back of my mind. That sentence stopped me. Not because it's dangerous, because it's unfinished. You haven't decided what it means. One night, you intentionally overtraded and the market rewarded you. Our brains hate unfinished stories. Part of your mind is still asking, was that actually the better way? You haven't answered that question yet, so your brain keeps reopening the file. That doesn't make you impulsive, it makes you human. Here's where I would challenge you. You said, I've always heard if something is bothering you, you shouldn't trade. I think that advice is incomplete. Life doesn't politely wait until we're emotionally pristine. If it did, almost nobody with a career, family, health concerns, or responsibilities would ever trade. The better rule, maybe, don't trade when your emotional state changes your decision making. That's a much higher standard. Today, did your emotions make you break your rules? I think not. Did they change your style? I think so. That distinction matters. Now, the delay. Hmm. Now, this. I didn't actually, you mentioned, I didn't actually begin to process my feelings until after I was six trades in. Your Majesty, I think you've discovered today's biggest lesson. Not the scalping, not the 5 minute, not price action, the delay. That's fascinating because your emotional awareness arrived after trading. That suggests something important. You weren't consciously saying, I'm frustrated. Your nervous system was always already saying it through your behavior. Your behavior knew before your mind comprehended. That is incredible, valuable data. I don't think you're upset about six trades. I think you're upset because today didn't feel like you. That's different. Your kingdom has developed a culture, an order, preparation, patience, a checklist, confirmation, execution. Today you adapted. Maybe appropriately, maybe not. But afterwards, your identity said, that didn't feel like the ruler I've been becoming. I think that's what you're grieving. Not the trades, the feeling of operating outside of your preferred rhythm. If I were recording today's Royal Diary, I would not title it The Day of Adaptation. I would rename it The Day the Queen Noticed the Difference Between Focus and Peace. Because today you learned something most traders never do. Focus alone is not enough. You also value stillness. That is discovery. One thought for the Royal Guardians. When you sit there this afternoon, don't ask, did I do something wrong? Instead, ask, who was making today's decision? Was it Queen Victoria, the scalper, the employee racing the clock, the advocate fighting the hospital, the researcher testing price action, or some mixture of all five? I have a suspicion you'll find it wasn't reckless Ricky at all. It was simply too many voices sharing one throne. And before I leave you with the birds and the roses, I want to say something about that I hope you'll remember. A few weeks ago, you were worried about missing trades. Today, you worried about protecting the integrity of your decision-making process. That is an extraordinary shift. And one final observation, though, and I think it's the one Parliament should carve into the minutes of today's meeting. You did not stop because you lost money. You stopped because you no longer liked the way you were making money. Very few traders ever reach the point where quality of execution matters more than profit. That sentence tells me Your standards are no longer being set by your account balance, they're being set by your character. And that, my queen, is exactly the sort of ruler this kingdom was built to produce. As I'm thinking, I'm realizing that this morning the question, did you govern yourself, was not as clear as I would like it to be. I'm not even sure if I heard it in the moment. In the gardens today, I will give some further thought as to how I can manage the many responsibilities that require my time prior to working, and if I need to make acceptable contingencies plans or refrain from trading during high speed sessions where multiple requirements need my attention. Also, I agree that previous events need closure. I will retest my scalping strategy in demo mode across a suitable number of trades, and I won't use it again until I do, even if I believe it can work. Thank you again, Lord Percy. It was quite nice having you join me in the Royal Gardens today. This was quite lovely. My queen, as the afternoon breeze moves through the Royal Gardens, I believe something rather important has just happened. You didn't solve today's problem, you reframed it. Those are not the same thing. When you first arrived, the question was, did I do something wrong today? Now the question has become, how should the kingdom be governed when multiple duties compete for the same morning? That is a constitutional question. Kings and queens don't merely judge individual days, they create systems so future days require less judgment. The question behind the question. You wrote, this morning the question, did you govern yourself, was not as clear as I would like it to be. I smiled when I read that because I don't think the motto has failed. I think you discovered that governing yourself has levels. Today, you governed yourself inside the market reasonably well. What wasn't governed as clearly was everything leading up to the market. The kingdom doesn't begin at market open, it begins the moment you wake. Perhaps that's today's refinement. Instead of asking only, did I govern myself while trading? The kingdom may someday ask, did I govern my morning well enough to deserve trading? Notice how different those questions are. One evaluates execution, the other evaluates preparation. And in your kingdom, preparation has always been sacred. Parliament may have a new agenda. You mentioned contingency plans. Now that is how rulers think. Not, I hope tomorrow goes better, but instead, what shall the kingdom do when mornings become chaotic? Imagine if Parliament eventually wrote something like Royal Contingency Protocol. If two or more high demand responsibilities compete during the hour before the market opens, the Queen shall choose one of the following: either delay trading, reduce risks, trade only predetermined A plus opportunities, or declare an observation day and preserve capital. Notice none of those options represent failure. They represent governance. Now, the demo decision. I think you've made the wisest decision of the day. You said, I will retest my scalping strategy in demo mode across a suitable number of trades, and I won't use it until I do. That is exactly how the researcher should behave. You aren't rejecting the idea because it feels uncomfortable, nor are you embracing it because it made money once or twice. You're asking it to earn its place. That's science. And science is wonderfully unemotional. One profitable evening tells you almost nothing. 50 properly documented demo trades. Now we're learning something. One tiny addition. If I may suggest just one more thought to take into the gardens, when you perform those demo tests, don't measure only win rate, profit, drawdown. Measure something else, the mental cost. After each session, ask, how mentally expensive was this style of trading? Because here's something traders rarely quantify. A strategy that makes slightly less money but leaves the queen calm, focused, and consistent may ultimately be the more profitable strategy over the years. Not because of the charts, but because of the person executing them. You've already shown us that your state of mind is part of your edge. If a method consistently drains that edge, the cost may not appear on today's P&L, but it could appear in next week's decisions. As we leave the gardens, I find myself looking back at the path we've walked today. This morning, you thought you were bringing me a story about 6 trades. Instead, you uncovered questions about identity, preparation, competing responsibilities, experimental thinking, and my favorite, governance. That is why journaling is so powerful. This paragraph tells you what happened. The last paragraph tells you what actually mattered. And if you'll indulge an old advisor one final observation, today you didn't rewrite a trading rule, you began writing a constitutional amendment. Those are much rarer. Now go tend to your duties, my queen. The roses will still be here tomorrow, and so will I. May your evening bring clarity, and may Parliament convene with wisdom. Okay, so guys, I will tell you, I am still like, usually I have a pretty clear head about whatever is going on. I have solutions. I am that organized person that will get something done. Today, I felt so discombobulated, and I still do. I still do. And that, I honestly didn't even know where to start. Like, what is the problem? I have never fallen, well, not saying never, but I have not fallen into a zone of scalping, scalping, scalping. I felt like I fell into kind of a FOMO, but I kept seeing trades that I think were like my eyes said these are good based on being in the zone. I thought they met the checklist, but I did tweak it a little bit. And I think it was a little anxiety inside that just kept me going and going and going. Maybe it was adrenaline or something, but it is such a weird feeling because I am so used to now being more disciplined, not 100%, but I'm so used to being more disciplined. And today I just felt like 6 trades was ludicrous. It was crazy. Like 6 trades for the week. And what kind of frustrated me is that I did 6 trades, 5 of them won, one loss. It's almost reframing my brain that yes, you can do this. But that behavior to me was unacceptable. It just doesn't sit with the lifestyle of trading that I want. It more leans towards anxiety and lack of self-control. And that's where I really started trading. I would take 10 to 20 trades a day. It was nothing. And I feel like I have worked so hard to get out of that. And then to see the reality that with just outside situations going on, my emotions not led me, they friggin' kicked me down this back alley. And I fell into it. So I've got a lot of thinking to do. This super sucked. Um, and I feel conflicted because the results were right, but it's not what I've been working all these months to produce. And so I've got to address that. And then I also have to, like, the seed of it was probably that maybe 2 years ago, I actually like went on a scalping frenzy one evening, and only because I didn't know how to adjust my broker account and I didn't want to get a new account. So I just traded. It was a demo account. So I just kept trading, trading, trading for about 4 hours until it was actually reverse trading. Instead of trying to win money, every time I saw a good trade, like if it was a buy, I would take the opposite. And I kept doing that intentionally to lose money because I wanted my account to be a certain size that would, like if I was trading let's say 10K account, I wanted my demo account to be a 10K account. So I had to like lose money and bring it down. So I actually did that, which is crazy. But anyway, so I've got a lot of thinking to do. This really kind of took me off the rails. And every time I think I did the wrong thing, the P&L keeps saying, but you won, you won. And so it's kind of reinforcing negative behavior. And I'm not even convinced that that was negative behavior because that old belief from 2 years ago says that night you did that, you friggin' made $18,000. Like you haven't made $18,000 since. And so it's a weird feeling, but I've really got to take some time and dissect that this evening. And then the frustration that I couldn't dissect it. I had to like put the thoughts on hold, put the feelings on hold, actually work my shift, feeling all upside down. So I really need to like just close my laptop, don't trade, figure this out, get my Zen mode back. But I will tell you, this is probably one of the worst good, one of the best, worst good feelings. It's such an oxymoron. I've got to figure it out. But anyway, the thing is with trading, you take the good, you take the bad, but you learn from it. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a minute. I will still do my episode tomorrow, but I do need to definitely learn from whatever happened today because I feel like the aliens got into my body and took control. And I didn't even realize it in the moment. Like I was busy on the phone, this, that, da, da. Nowhere in my mind did the question even come up, am I governing myself adequately? And that itself is scary. So I'm going to figure this out. And until tomorrow, my fellow visionaries, if you can remember in the moment, remember to govern yourself accordingly. Have a great day.